The Director Series is made possible in large part by our generous supporters on Patreon. Please visit us at patreon.com/directorseries to see how your contribution enables the continued production of video essays and text articles on your favorite contemporary and classic film directors. Thank you. Facebook is easily the biggest, most transformative development of the early 21st century. It completely revolutionized how we communicate with each other, how we keep in touch with old friends and family, and even how we use the internet on a fundamental level. At the end of the day, however, Facebook is a tool, a product, a collection of ones and zeros organized just so and projected onto our monitors. So when it was announced that the West Wing creator Aaron Sorkin had written a screenplay based off The Accidental Billionaires, Ben Mesrick's book on Facebook's turbulent founding, the question on everyone's minds was, how could they ever make a movie out of Facebook? As Mesrick's book revealed, the inside story of Facebook's genesis was fraught with an almost Shakespearean level of drama, intrigue, and betrayal. Sorkin's script, The Social Network, was a high-profile project from day one. It attracted the efforts of top producers like Scott Rudin, in addition to well-known personalities like Kevin Spacey, who signed on to executive produce the film. When Fincher was handed the director's chair, the buzz around the film became a roar. The Social Network would live or die on the strengths of its performances, a notion that the technically minded Fincher employed into his approach by placing an unusual amount of focus on them. Beginning with a generous 3 weeks of rehearsal time prior to the shoot, and following through with consistently demanding an obscene number of takes, Fincher led his cast into delivering searing, career-best performances. The lion's share of the attention and the film's only acting nomination at the Oscars went to Jesse Eisenberg's pitch-perfect portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg, or rather, Sorkin's fictional version of the real-life Facebook founder. Eisenberg plays Zuckerberg as a cold genius with sarcastic, antisocial tendencies. He is regularly absent from the present. His mind is elsewhere, preoccupied by his duties back at the office. At the same time, he can be calculating and ruthless when he needs to be. As Eduardo Saverin, the initial investor and embattled ex-CFO of Facebook, Andrew Garfield delivers a breakout performance. Decent, passionate, and perhaps a little bit squirrely, Saverin is Zuckerberg's closest friend and confidant, a brother. But the relationship is a Cain and Abel story, and because he blindly trusts that Zuckerberg will do the right thing and look out for him, he unwittingly assumes the Abel position. Pop icon Justin Timberlake plays Sean Parker, the creator of Napster and Silicon Valley's de facto bad boy. Timberlake easily channels a flashy, cocky, and flamboyant physicality that's at once both undeniably attractive to Zuckerberg and duplicitously sleazy to Saverin. Fincher's casting of Timberlake is quite playful, and he doesn't pull any punches when it comes to pointing out the irony of a pop star playing a man who single-handedly transformed, or as some might say ruined, his industry. Fincher's eclectic supporting players serve as rock-solid satellites that orbit around the film's 3 leads. Fincher's series of collaborations with the Mara clan begins here, with the casting of Rooney Mara as Erica Albright, Zuckerberg's ex-girlfriend. She's patient and honest, but in a no-bullshit kind of way that's not afraid to tell people off and put them in their place. Mara turns in a spectacular, low-profile performance that would lead to high-profile roles in other films, not the least of which would be the lead in Fincher's next project, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Rashida Jones, better known for her work on Parks and Rec, plays the admittedly thankless role of Marilyn Delpy, an insightful young lawyer in Zuckerberg's deposition. Her knack for comedy is well documented in her larger body of work, but here she shows off a fantastic serious side that's consistently realistic. Armie Hammer's dual performance as the Winklevoss twins was yet another of the film's many breakouts. Hammer's portrayal of the film's primary set of antagonists required the dashing young actor to not only change his physicality between Tyler and Cameron by mere degrees, but also to undergo the arduous process of motion capturing his face for its later digital compositing onto the body of actor Josh Pence. Pence, it should be noted, is the great hero of the piece, as he valiantly forfeited his own facial performance in service to Fincher's vision. And last but not least, Joseph Mazzello turns up in his highest profile role since 1993's Jurassic Park as the anxious, nerdy Dustin Moskovitz, Zuckerberg's roommate at Harvard and one of Facebook's founding fathers. Fincher's foray into digital filmmaking soldiers on in The Social Network, but this time he swaps out the Viper Filmstream camera with its maximum resolution of 1080 pixels for the glorious 4K visuals of the Red One camera. His Fight Club cinematographer, Jeff Cronenweth, returns to shoot The Social Network in Fincher's preferred 2:40:1 aspect ratio, ultimately bagging a cinematography Oscar nomination for his trouble. Fincher and Cronenweth convey an overall cold tone without relying on the obvious blue side of the color spectrum. Warmer shots are dialed into a yellow hue, with a prominent green cast coating several shots. Fincher's visual signature is immediately apparent, once again utilizing high-contrast lighting and practical lamps that make for dark, cavernous interiors. In shooting the film, Fincher and Cronenweth pursued a simple, unadorned look. Combined with the digital format's increased sensitivity to light, most lighting setups were reportedly completed in 20 minutes or less. The camera work is sedate and observational, containing none of the flashiness of its tonal kindred spirit, Fight Club. When the camera does move, the name of the game is precision, meaning calculated dolly moves or the motion-controlled perfection of the technocrane. There's only one handheld shot in the entire film, when Timberlake's Parker drunkenly approaches a bedroom door at a house party to find police on the other side. The Social Network marks production designer Donald Graham Burt's third consecutive collaboration with Fincher, and third consecutive period piece. Thankfully, reconstructing the mid-2000s isn't as arduous a process as recreating the San Francisco of the 70s, or New Orleans during large swaths of the 20th century. The major challenge on Burt's part was replicating a well-known campus like Harvard in an authentic manner when the school refused to let the production film on their grounds. Shots filmed at Johns Hopkins University, as well as various locations in Los Angeles, are unified in time and space by Fincher's editing team of Angus Wall and Kirk Baxter. The director's adoption of digital techniques extends well into the post-production realm, where his approach meant that any promises that technology would make for editing any easier went right out the window. On set, Fincher routinely used 2 cameras for each setup, effectively doubling his coverage. Compound that with his penchant for demanding dozens upon dozens of takes, and Wall and Baxter were ultimately left with over 268 hours of raw digital footage to sift through, a momentous task made all the more complicated by Fincher's tendency to mix and match elements from various takes right down to individual syllables of audio to achieve the cadence of performance he desired. The new tools that digital filmmaking affords have certainly unleashed Fincher's control freak tendencies. But when that same obsession results in his strongest work to date, and Oscar wins for his editing team, it can hardly be called a bad thing. One of the most immediate and striking aspects of The Social Network is its unconventional music score, written by Nine Inch Nails frontman Trent Reznor in his first scoring job after a series of casual collaborations with Fincher. Partnering with Atticus Ross, Reznor has managed to create an entirely electronic sound that not only evokes his own artistic aesthetic, but also complements the film's tone perfectly. Reznor's Oscar-winning suite of cues is rather spooky, unifying all the disparate elements with a haunting buzzing sound that's the musical equivalent of dancing on a razor's edge. The now iconic main theme uses melancholy piano plunks that recall nostalgia and childhood, slowly getting softer and lost to audio buzz and droning as Zuckerberg strays from innocence. Another standout is a rearrangement of Edvard Grieg's classical masterpiece In the Hall of the Mountain King during the Henley Regatta rowing sequence, which sounds as though it were filtered through the manic electric prism of Wendy Carlos, Stanley Kubrick's composer on The Clockwork Orange and The Shining. Fincher's go-to sound guy, Ren Kleiss, layers everything into a coherent audio mix that would net him his own Oscar nomination. Kleiss and Fincher's approach to the sonic palette of The Social Network is interesting, in that they don't shy away from mixing in loud music and ambiance during crowded scenes like the opening tavern sequence, or the midpoint nightclub sequence. The dialogue is almost lost among the loud din of activity, signaling to the audience that they'll really have to listen over the next 2 hours. Despite being a primarily talkie film, the experience of watching The Social Network is anything but passive. The Social Network takes all of Fincher's core thematic fascinations and bottles them up into a singular experience. The director's opening credits are always inspired, and The Social Network is no different. Echoing the character's composed, plotting nature, Fincher shows us Eisenberg running robotically through the Harvard campus late at night. It not only establishes the setting well, but also introduces us to the lead character's relentless forward focus. Treating the text to disappear like it might on a computer screen, and laying Reznor's haunting theme over the whole thing, are additional little touches that complete the package. The title shot in this sequence, where we see Zuckerberg run through Harvard Square from an aerial vantage point, also shows off Fincher's inspired use of digital technology in subtle ways. The shot was achieved by placing 3 Red 1 cameras next to each other on top of a building and looking down at the action below. This setup later allowed Fincher to stitch all 3 shots into one super-wide panorama of the scene, through which he could follow Zuckerberg via a virtual pan. Mankind's relationship to technology has always been a major staple of Fincher's films, a thematic fascination influenced by his forebear Stanley Kubrick. In The Social Network, this theme comes to a head as the story's main engine. The saga of Mark Zuckerberg is inherently about computers, the internet, our complicated interactions with it, and its effect on our physical world relationships. Whereas Kubrick painted technology as dehumanizing and something to be feared, Fincher sees it as something to embrace, something that distinctly enhances humanity and differentiates one person from the other. In Fincher's work, the human element tends to coalesce around the nihilistic punk subculture. Our protagonist is inherently nihilistic and narcissistic, willing to burn whatever bridge he needs to advance his own personal cause, despite his actions not being fueled by a desire for money or power. The story hits on Fincher's punk fascinations with Zuckerberg's rebelliousness and devil-may-care attitude, in addition to the overt imagery of antisocial computer hackers and the inclusion of the Ramones' California Uber Alice. Finally, Fincher's emphasis on architecture helps to evoke a sense of time and place, mixing in the old-world Harvard brownstones with the sleek modernism of the Facebook offices and deposition rooms, echoing the film's subtext about the old guard stubbornly giving way to a new order. The Social Network debuted in October of 2010 and enjoyed very healthy box office receipts, mostly due to the name recognition of Facebook, as well as our collective curiosity about its eccentric founder. There's a strong case to be made that The Social Network is the best film in Fincher's entire body of work, but that's a hard case to argue considering the strength of the rest of his filmography. The Social Network scored high marks with critics, going on to earn several Oscar nominations and even taking home gold statues for some of the big categories, like editing and adapted screenplay. Ultimately, Fincher himself lost out on his Best Director and Best Picture nominations to The King's Speech. It may not be an entirely accurate reflection of its true-life subject, but The Social Network is a pitch-perfect reflection of what Zuckerberg left in his wake. A society that would never be the same, fundamentally changed by a radical new prism of communication.